Profesora, haciendo las 8:15, empezamos inicio a nuestra sesión número 8 de interpretación simultánea con la
O-
profesora Olga Salazar. Profe, pasó a compartir los parámetros de la sesión.
ok,
Estudiantes, estos son los parámetros de las sesiones por videoconferencia. Las sesiones se graban, para que podemos verlas nuevamente en la plataforma virtual. Les solicitamos que por favor silencien sus micrófonos y puedan activarlos cuando quieran hacer consultas o aportes con el permiso del docente. Les pedimos que mantengan su cámara activa. De no poder hacerlo, enviar sus excusas por el chat de Zoom, o de lo contrario serán retirados de la sesión y les serán restados puntos de la valoración del docente. Mi rol como moderador es facilitaría, pero en la parte técnica, las consultas las hacemos por el chat personal o general. Les exhorto a tener el boli y papel para hacer sus anotaciones y aprovechar al máximo esta sesión. Listo, profesora.
gracias, Rafa. Okay, let's wait for a minute for the rest of the student, okay? Okay, let's start. So this is class 8, part 2, about simultaneous interpretation. So as you know, interpreter and translator convert information from one language into another language. Interpreter work in spoken or sign language, and translators work in writing language. Both jobs are too hard to develop, but if you love it, you can do it. So let's talk about simultaneous interpretation. So also known as real-time interpretation because you translate and you interpret it in real time. It's challenging and complex process that enables communication between people who speak different languages. It is an essential tool for international conference, diplomatic meetings, and other events where participants come from different parts of the world. So traditionally, simultaneous interpreters are highly skilled professionals who have undergone extensive training to be able to listen to one language and interpret it into another language at the same time, all while simultaneously listening to the next sentence in the original language. Okay, here is a general overview of how simultaneous interpretation works. So the speaker speaks in their language and their words are transmitted through a microphone to the interpreter. The interpreter listens to the speaker through headphones and simultaneously interprets what the speaker is saying into the target language. The interpretation is transmitted through a wireless system to listeners who require it. The listener hears the interpretation through headsets or other audio equipment. The interpreter continues to listen to the speaker and interpret the word in real time, while the speaker continues to speak. The process repeats for the duration of the event or meeting, with the interpreter delivering a continuous interpretation of the speaker's word. So let's see how it works.
En la UIP exploramos y creamos. Llevarás tu potencial al máximo en un ambiente inspirador y acogedor.
¿Que Luis está preocupado por su ojo?
No.
Hoy le di un baño a Joanny. Preparé un café para Julián.
When a language barrier exists, the presence of a professional interpreter is crucial. A professional interpreter facilitates unobstructed communication, and when this is done right, a good interpreter begins to become transparent as they act as a conduit for the conversation. In this video, you will see common mistakes of an untrained interpreter, followed by the proper technique of a professional interpreter.
Hello.
Olga.
Let him know that I'm glad he's here today.
Él dice que está muy contento que está aquí hoy.
I just want to start out asking him some basic questions, so let him know that I'm going to do that.
Él dice que le va a hacer unas preguntas básicas.
Ask him who lives at his house.
Él quiere saber quién vive en su casa.
Pues vivo yo, mi esposa y mis 4 niños.
He said that it's himself, his wife, and his 4 children.
Okay, what are their ages?
¿Y cuántos años tienen sus hijos? Él quiere saber.
Uno tiene 13 años, 10, 5 y 2.
He said that his children are 13, 10, 5, and 2.
Thank you for being here today.
Gracias por venir hoy.
I really appreciate you coming out.
Y aprecio que está aquí hoy.
I just want to start by asking you just some basic questions.
Le quiero hacer unas preguntas básicas.
Who all lives at your house?
¿Quiénes son las que viven en su casa?
Vivo yo, mi esposa y mis 4 niños.
It's myself, my wife, and my 4 children.
Okay, what are their ages, your children?
¿Y sus hijos cuántos años tienen?
Uno tiene 13 años, 10, 5 y 2 años.
One's 13, 10, 5, and 2 years.
Okay.
Está bien.
Whenever possible, an interpreter should sit to the side and slightly behind the target language speaker. As you saw in the video, this emphasizes the message, not the interpreter. It reduces distraction and allows the parties to engage each other, not the interpreter.
Mr. Sanchez, do you know why you're here today?
Señor Sánchez, él quiere saber si usted sabe por qué está aquí hoy.
Yo no tengo la menor idea por qué usted está aquí.
He said he has no idea why you're here.
Well, I received a report with some concerns about your son Luis.
Él dice que recibió un reporte que se trata de unas preocupaciones de su hijo Luis.
¿Qué tipo de preocupaciones?
He wants to know what kind of concerns.
Okay. Well, the report says that Luis has an injury to his eye, and I'm concerned about that.
Él dice que según el reporte, Luis tiene unas lesiones al ojo y está preocupado.
¿Que Luis está preocupado por su ojo?
No, él dice que él está preocupado por lo que encontró con Luis.
¿Y qué tipo de preocupación tiene él?
He wants to know what kind of concerns you have.
Mr. Sanchez, do you know why you're here today?
Señor Sánchez, ¿sabe por qué estamos aquí hoy?
No tengo la menor idea por qué.
No, I have no idea why.
Okay. Well, I received a report that has some concerns about your son, Luis.
Recibí un reporte que se trata de unas preocupaciones de su hijo Luis.
¿Qué tipo de preocupaciones?
What type of concerns?
Well, there's concerns about something that happened to his eye.
Unas preocupaciones de algo que sucedió con el ojo de Luis.
¿Qué pasó? ¿Cuál es su preocupación?
Well, what happened? What's your concern?
A trained interpreter should always interpret in first person. This is the standard of professional interpreting. It allows the interpreter to become transparent, allows for a more accurate message to be conveyed, and reduces third-person confusion.
Okay. How did Luis end up with a black eye?
¿Y cómo llegó a tener un ojo negro, moretón en el ojo?
Pues él se golpeó con no, él estuvo en una pelea.
He was in a fight.
He was in a fight? Okay, can you tell me about this fight?
¿Me puede contar un poco de este pleito?
Pues él estaba en el camión de la escuela camino a casa y hubo dos muchachos que comenzaron a molestarlo y le trataron de quitar su dinero o le quitaron su dinero y le pegaron y le marcaron un ojo.
There were some boys on the bus that hit him in the eye.
Okay, what else happened?
¿Y qué más pasó?
Pues cuando él llegó a la casa y me dijo, yo le dije a él que él tenía que aprender a defenderse, que él era muy blandito, tenía que ser más valiente y pelear.
I told him to stick up for himself.
Okay.
El modelo de negocio de Amazon FBA está haciendo ganar a la gente más dinero que doctores y abogados sin tener la necesidad.
So, what happened to Luis's eye?
Entonces, ¿qué pasó con el ojo de Luis?
Pues él se golpeó con... no, él venía en el camión de la escuela y había unos muchachos que lo estaban molestando y lo golpearon en el ojo y le quitaron el dinero.
Well, he ran into no, actually, he was on the school bus and some young men were bothering him and they hit him in the eye and took his money.
Okay. So this happened on the school bus?
Entonces, ¿esto pasó en el bus escolar?
Sí, fue en el camión de la escuela.
Well,
Yes, it was in the school bus.
Okay, so if it happened on the school bus, we can get the video camera from the school bus and see what happened.
Entonces, si sucedió en el bus escolar, podemos ver el video que siempre toma el bus escolar para ver si realmente pasó.
Bueno, tal vez no sea necesario porque pensándolo mejor, yo creo que eso pasó más tarde.
Well, maybe it's not the best idea. Not thinking about it, it might have happened later on.
Interpreters should never add, omit, or substitute any part of the message, even if it seems redundant, irrelevant, or rude. When an interpreter adds or omits, it generally takes away from the message, eliminates useful information, and can change the intent of the message.
Okay. Just wait 1 second. I need to look through some papers real quick.
Espera un momento, tengo que ver mis notas aquí.
¿Y dónde aprendió usted a hablar español?
En Honduras. Honduras.
¿Honduras?
Sí.
Mi esposa es de Honduras.
¿Ah, sí? ¿De cuál parte?
De La Ceiba.
De veras.
Sí.
Yo soy de La Ceiba también. Bueno, desde niña vivía allá.
Oh, qué bien.
Sí.
What were you guys saying?
Oh, we're actually from the same place.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I have a few more questions for you, Mr. Sanchez.
Tengo unas preguntas más para preguntarle, señor Sánchez.
Hold on 1 second. I need to look through my notes.
Espera un momento, tengo que revisar mis notas.
¿Y dónde aprendió usted español?
En Honduras.
En Honduras. Mi esposa es de Honduras,
¿Ah, sí? ¿De cuál parte?
de La Ceiba.
He's actually asking me where I learned Spanish. I let him know Honduras, and his wife is from the same place where I grew up.
Okay. Well, Mr. Sanchez, I have a few more questions for you.
No, señor Sánchez, tengo unas preguntas para hacerle.
Side conversations should be rare and should never exclude the other party. Ensuring that everything is interpreted reduces suspicion and confusion. Further, interpreting everything ensures that professional role boundaries are maintained.
This was really interesting about how I interpreted might do his or her work. So in a review about the video, we have taken some note about how important is the body language and the position when you want to interpret it. Another one was interpreters in first person never add or omit or eliminate information and never exclude the other person when you have side conversation. Okay, let's continue. So let's talk about some connectivity challenges in simultaneous interpretation. So lay people often ask how simultaneous interpreters manage to translate highly technical speeches as scientists, technical conference, and how they prepare into translate any idiom, any language, how they work, how they prepare in order to do a good job. So the language of a specialized conference is not a particular complex in terms in syntax, más less so that the language and not technical flowery speeches. And its main difficult for interpreter, it is specialized lexicon. Let's see the second part of the video.
Read happy for breeze, la 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 la.
So what do you think Luis would say happened to his eye?
Entonces, ¿qué
Part 2 of the video.
piensa que diría Luis que pasó con el ojo de él?
Pues yo me imagino que él le dirá que unos chamacos lo golpearon.
Well, I figure that he can tell you that some young man hit him in the eye.
Well, I've actually talked to Luis at his school, and he said that you came home drunk on Sunday and you hit him.
Bueno, hablé con Luis en la escuela y él dijo que usted había llegado emborrachado el domingo a la noche y que le había pegado.
Eso es imposible porque yo estuve trabajando el domingo en Charlie.
¿Dónde trabaja?
O Charlie's.
¿Y qué es Charlie's?
Ese es el restaurante donde yo trabajo.
That's impossible. I was at work at O'Charlie's that night.
Okay, what else was he saying?
Oh, he just said, I didn't understand what he's saying when he said O'Charlie's, though. I was just asking him about that.
Okay. What do you think Luis would say happened to his eye?
¿Qué piensa que dirá Luis que pasó con el ojo de él?
Pues yo me imagino que le dirá que unos chamacos lo golpearon.
I would imagine that he would tell you that some young man hit him.
Well, I've actually talked to Luis at his school, and he said that you came home drunk Sunday and hit him.
Bueno, hablé con Luis en la escuela de él y él me había comentado que usted llegó emborrachado el domingo por la noche y que le había pegado.
Eso es imposible porque yo el domingo yo estuve trabajando en Charlie.
As an interpreter, I need to clarify a word used.
Okay.
¿Dónde trabaja, señor?
En O'Charlie's.
That's impossible because I was at work on Sunday night at O'Charlie's.
Okay.
Interpreting sessions will not always go smoothly. You may encounter difficult accents, unknown regional slang, or individuals who mumble or speak quickly. Never engage in a clarifying conversation that excludes the other party. Appropriate clarifying will create less disruption and provide for a better flow during the session. It will also prevent the exclusion of one party from the conversation.
Well, if you didn't hit Luis, why would he tell me that you did?
Entonces, si usted no le pegó a Luis, ¿por qué dijo él de que sí le pegó?
Mira, Luis se pasa mintiendo siempre, todo el tiempo, diciendo mentiras. Yo creo que se debe a que cuando él era pequeño y cuando él nació, él tuvo problemas de respiración y no respiraba bien, y yo creo que eso le causó problemas en el cerebro. Él siempre se pasa mintiendo y lo hemos agarrado varias veces mintiendo en muchas cosas. Y le puedes preguntar a los hermanos de él, siempre mintiendo. Lo hemos agarrado muchas veces.
Luis likes to lie a lot.
Is that all he just said?
I mean, pretty much.
So if you didn't hit Luis, why would he say that you did?
Entonces, si usted no le pegó a Luis, ¿por qué dijo él de que sí le pegó?
Bueno, Luis se pasa mintiendo todo el tiempo. Él miente. Yo creo que se debe a que cuando él era chico, cuando nació,
Well, the thing about it is that Luis likes to lie a lot. He lies and lies. I think it has something to do with when he was born.
cuando nació, él tuvo problemas de respiración. Yo creo que eso le hizo daño en el cerebro.
He had some breathing problems, and I think that damaged his brain.
Y él siempre se pasa mintiendo. Nosotros lo hemos agarrado varias veces mintiendo. Y si quiere, le puede preguntar a los hermanos.
And I think that's why he lies a lot. We've actually caught him in quite a few lies. You could even ask his brothers about that.
Él siempre está mintiendo.
He's always lying.
Well, here's the thing. I actually did talk to his brothers yesterday, and they told me the same thing that he said.
Bueno, sí, hablé con los hermanos de él y ellos me comentaron lo mismo de lo que él había dicho.
Most people realize that an interpreter needs pauses in conversation to interpret. Unfortunately, some people will continue to talk without giving time to interpret the message. In such cases, an interpreter should feel free to interject in the conversation to ask the individual to pause and allow room for interpretation. This management of the session will create greater flow and reduce the need to summarize parts of the message.
Okay, I actually talked to all of your children, and they all told me the same story, that you hit Luis.
Bueno, hablé con todos sus hijos y ellos me contaron el mismo cuento de que usted sí le pegó a Luis.
Oh, sí. Y yo le pegué a un niño de 5 años.
Yes, I hit a 5-year-old.
So you admit that you hit him?
Entonces está confesando que sí lo pegó.
No, yo no le pegué a él.
No, I didn't hit him.
Then why did you just say you hit him?
¿Y por qué dijo que le pegó?
Estoy siendo sarcástico. ¿Cómo tú te atreves a ir a hablar con mis niños sin yo estar presente? Pedazo de basura.
I was being sarcastic. Why did you talk to my kids without me there?
Well, I'm allowed to talk to your children at school. That's part of the law.
Yo tengo el derecho de hablar con sus hijos en la escuela, es parte de las leyes.
But listen, well, here's what we need to get down to. You need to start telling the truth right now. No more lies.
Usted necesita decir la verdad, señor.
I've actually talked to all of your children at school, and they all told me the same story that you hit Luis.
Bueno, en la actualidad hablé con todos sus hijos en la escuela y ellos me contaron el mismo cuento de que usted le había pegado a Luis.
Entonces yo le pegué a un niño de 5 años.
So I hit a 5-year-old.
I don't know, you tell me.
Yo no sé, usted me necesita decir.
Mira, ¿cómo tú te pones a hablar con mis niños sin yo estar presente? Pedazo de basura.
How in the world do you think you could go and talk to my kids without me being present, you piece of trash?
Okay, listen. You need to start telling the truth right now, and you need to stop all the lies.
Ahora, escucha, señor, usted necesita decir la verdad ahorita sin mentir.
Ok, yo le pegué, yo estaba borracho, en realidad yo no me acuerdo de nada.
Okay, I hit him, but I was drunk and I really don't remember a lot of it.
Words are only part of what is being said. Professional interpreters replicate the register, style, and tone of the speaker. This will prevent confusion, ensure an accurate and clear message, and instill confidence in both parties that what they are saying is truly being conveyed. These 7 tips demonstrate some of the core differences between a trained and untrained interpreter.
That's right. When you don't translate in the correct way, some, like he said, some sarcastic sentences or idiomatic expressions, you will be in trouble because it changes the meaning of the anything that is being spoken. So it's really important for you to research, to have all the information about the topic that you are going to translate, because it will make the difference to make a good job. Okay, let's continue. So there are cultural challenges and social challenges, affective challenges, having to do with their role as message mediator between groups with different cultures. As I said, you have to look for information and study all the vocabulary that you need in order to make a good job as an interpreter. Remember that maybe you will have a different accent, maybe you will have a native speaker with different cultures. So you have to be ready, to be prepared in order to do a good job. So is it that the main connective challenge in a simultaneous interpretation is about the time? Because as you know, the simultaneous interpretation is real time. It is not about the video. In the video, you have a consecutive interpretation because it may stop. When the person is speaking, the interpreter may stop and then he or she translates. Then the speaker starts talking again and then he may stop and the interpreter start interpreting. So it's completely different for simultaneous interpretation. In simultaneous interpretation, you don't have time even to think. You have to be prepared to interpret and reading what the person is talking at the same time and translate. So it's really difficult. That's the reason that the interpreter just work like 30 minutes and they switch, because it is a hard work to do. So over time, simultaneous interpreters have developed ways of facing the linguistic and cognitive difficulties they encounter on a regular basis In the literature, they are often referred to as strategies, but it's perhaps more rational to distinguish between preparatory action with a desired medium-term and long-term effect, which can indeed be called strategies. So, preparation strategies. The most fundamental strategies used by interpreters to cope with the cognitive difficulties or simultaneously revolve around preparation of their interpreted assignment. As I said, you have to look for information, look and study all the vocabulary that you need in order to make a good job. Remember that we have different simultaneous interpretation, different sets. You maybe be interpreting with a lawyer or interpreter in a hospital. So you have to study the vocabulary that is specific in that set. So you have to study the vocabulary in context. So this will help you to resolve potential ambiguity in the speeches they hear and facilitate comprehension as well as production by lowering the processing capacity of time required to analyze incoming signal and to retrieve appropriate lexical unit when producing their translation. The literature of interpreting about with description and analysis of the simultaneous interpreted online tactic with further evidence of the high prevalence of difficulties interpreted encountered while in the book. So, collaborative tactic. There are two reasons why simultaneous interpreters tend to work in teams of at least two. That was the part that I was talking about. It is a hard work, it is stressful, and you can only work just 30 minutes and then switch because it's a lot of pressure for your brain. Remember that you have to listen, translate. It's really difficult. That's the reason that you have just 30 minutes to work on it. Okay, some tactics are aiming at preventing predictor overload. For instance, when interpreted from one language into another language with very different syntax, interpreters often start their target language reformulation as soon as they have enough information from the unfolded source speech, with a short autonomous sentence or with a neutral beginning rather than commit themselves in one specific direction. Another trial class associated with certain tactics is connected in nature, explaining a term whose equivalent in the target language is unknown to the interpreter. Finger spelling a long word, writing down a large number, lest it be forgotten, involve extra time and can lead to excessive lag behind the speaker and to saturation of working memory with the consequent described error. Okay, So now let's talk about the skill that interpreter might have. As you know, I have told you several times that you have to work in your short-term memory and long-term memory. That is the key in order to do a better job if you want to work as interpreters. So, simultaneous interpretation requires skilled interpreters who are able to think quickly in both languages, as well as high-quality equipment to ensure clear and consistent transmission of the interpretation to listeners. To ensure accurate and seamless interpretation, interpreters undergo rigorous training and possess exceptional language proficiency in both the source and the target language. They might have a deep understanding of cultures, nuances, industry-specific terminology, and the ability to think quickly and make a split-second decision. These skills include both hard skills, which are technical knowledge and capability that enable them to fulfill employment demands, and soft skills, which are personality traits and general skills that help them work with others. So let's see an example of interpreter skill, language. So fluency in your language is fundamental for a career as an interpreter because you might work with a variety of clients and serving. It is essential to have a wide vocabulary in each language in which you work. Multilingual interpreter may also qualify for more employment opportunities. So it is also important to understand the culture surrounding this language. Knowing about cultural practice, belief, and traditions can allow you to show respect to others and handle unexpected topic and work in a manner suitable for each audience. So I said you have to look information about the person that you are going to be a translator. So active listening. Listening is a core responsibility for interpreter. It is crucial that you are able to understand the speaker's exact meaning and translate it as exactly as possible. Listening skill also help you understand the speaker emotion and state of mind. This may further your understanding of their message and improve your interaction with them. Empathy, because this career often involves sensitive situations and allow you to communicate on behalf of others. Empathy can be essential. This skill can allow you to help clients feel comfortable with working with an interpreter. It might also bring you a deeper understanding of their situation. Public speaking. Interpreters often perform in a public. While you may translate during business meeting, phone conversation, or medical appointments, some interpreters work during legal hearings, conferences, and speeches. Being able to compose yourself and communicate clearly in front of large crowd could benefit you. Technical knowledge. So many interpreters specialize in a particular industry such as healthcare, law, finance, or business. That's the reason that I told you that you have to know in the terminology all the vocabulary in context in the area that you are going to work. It may also help you understand the context surrounding the speaker's words. Customer service. Interpreter may work for a wide range of clients. Customer service skills like conflict resolution and patterns enable you to meet clients' needs. They also demonstrate your reliability and commitment. Focus. Interpreting in real time takes a great deal of focus. This individual listen carefully to the speakers, and it's important to represent their statement as accurate as possible. Focus could help you keep up with a fast pace, even and conversation. Multitasking. When interpreting, you listen to what the speaker says while you interpret their previous sentences. People who can perform multiple tasks at once with accurate might excel at the role. As I said, while they are listening, they are translated, and that is a hard word. There is no more person that can do this work. There is not for anyone. This is for a specific one, someone that loves to be interpreted. When you graduate for English, you have to decide if you want to be an interpreter or if you want to be an English teacher. So interpreters represent the people they work for. So the ability to present yourself professionally can be highly beneficial. It is crucial to minimize distraction while interpreting. So dressing and behaving professionally could help guests focus on the message delivered. Interpersonal skill. The ability to forget positive relationship with others could benefit you in this profession. This could help you to connect with audience and clients and build trust and credibility. Interpretation requires analytical skills, as you may interpret the speaker word to understand and convey their meaning clearly. For example, imagine the speaker uses an idiom without an exact match in other language. You might apply analytical skill to determine the best way to interpret their statement. Stress management. Interpreting a live event can involve some pressures. This helpful to develop an effective system for managing stress, remaining calm, and managing unexpected challenge effectively can help you focus and present professionally. Remember that to avoid this kind of stress, that's the reason that they interpret the word in group of two or more. It depends of the company or the business that is taking the interpreters, because you will only work just 30 minutes and then switch to the other interpreters. Acting as an interpreter can require a delicate sense of ethics. You may learn confidential information until legal hearing and discuss sensitive matters. It is vital to approach this situation with integrity and respect. Research. Research skill could allow you to update yourself on recent development on linguistics and cultures, strengthening your practice. Some assignments may also require research to prepare yourself. For example, if you are interpreting a convention for new journalists, learning about the most recent development in news and media could help you to anticipate which topic you may encounter. Objectivity. Interpreters only share the basic messages conveyed by others rather than their own feeling or opinion. So you must be objective. So how to improve interpreter skill? Here are steps that you can follow to strengthen this competence. Practice your language skills. Practicing writing, speaking, and reading your target language can help you grow in your career. Read about global trends, new and events. Consuming new research and media about global issues could help you stay informed about changing cultural attitudes and ideas. Attend to multicultural events. Attending events in which people speak in a variety of language could refine your ear. Take continuing education classes. Interpreters aim to maintain and strengthen their language skill over time. It could be beneficial for you to enroll in classes to refine your verbal skill in any of your target language. Let's see. Oh. So what is the video? I guess that this wasn't a link for a video. Let me check. No, that is not. Okay, let's continue. So we have talked here, and you might have some education in both the target or the source language. So interpreters usually work in two directions. Most interpreters work bi-directionally, meaning that an interpreter often works both and from the target and source language. Good speakers in their native language, interpreters not only understand the source language, but also communicate extremely well in the target language. Often specialized as subject areas. Interpreters often specialize in certain subject areas such as law, medicine, business, banking, technology, science, and literature. Specialized require an in-depth knowledge of the subject and its terminology in both the source and the target language. Okay, let's make a review. So for the next class, we are going to talk about consecutive interpretation. The consecutive interpretation is different from simultaneous interpretation. It's easier, but it is hard as well. Any interpretation is hard, but if we have to compare
Protege a tu hijo con Pediasure, que gracias
simultaneous with consecutive is the easy one.
a sus nutrientes ayuda a mejorar su estado nutricional y por ello
And I'm Barry Slaughter Olson, a conference interpreter with 25 years of experience interpreting for diplomats and world leaders at places like the UN. When you think of interpreters, scenes like these are probably the first that come to mind. People in soundproof booths, interpreting in real time to government officials below. But interpreters often have to do their jobs in private, closed-door meetings. This is called bilateral interpreting. And as anyone who heard about the Trump-Putin meetings knows, it's a very real situation when certain meetings just have a limited number of people in a room. And those people are sworn to secrecy. This is a demonstration of what can typically happen in these meetings behind closed doors.
Comenzamos. Shall we begin?
Actually, things began before anyone even arrived. Most of the time, terms are agreed upon in advance of the meeting. The agendas are carefully negotiated and outlined. They can range from arms reduction to economic cooperation to water rights. All we need is a plausible topic to get started. Let's say dolphin-safe tuna fishing. To start, our interpreters position themselves. You'd think they'd be in the middle somewhere because they've got to hear well, right? Well, for meetings in front of the press, they don't want to be the center of attention or appear in press photos. See how they're on the sidelines here? That's so they can easily be cropped out of the pictures to be published later, which doesn't always work out. So, before this meeting begins, there are things that need to be decided. Will recordings be permitted? Is a record being kept? Who's going to attend? But this is a closed-door bilateral meeting, so it'll just be these four. Now, there are two styles of interpretation, simultaneous and consecutive. Consecutive is the most common style of interpreting in diplomatic situations. Here's an example.
It's been a while since I've been here. I'm so excited to be back. Thank you for having me.
And then?
Desde hace bastante tiempo que no venía, así que muchísimas gracias por recibirme nuevamente.
The interpreter waits until the speaker pauses.
Estamos muy agradecidos de poder colaborar nuevamente con el gobierno de su país.
And then interprets.
We're very happy to be able to collaborate again with the government of your country.
Simple, right? But what happens if the speaker goes on and on without pausing?
Estamos muy agradecidos de poder volver a colaborar con ustedes.
Interpreters rarely translate word for word. Instead, we remember specific ideas and translate those ideas accordingly. But when the speaker goes on and on for a long time, interpreters rely on note-taking.
We want to authorize the use of the dolphin-friendly label by your country's tuna processors.
These symbols represent the speaker's ideas.
The use of authorized equipment.
This is the reason that I said that consecutive interpretation is the easy one. Because it allows you to use this technique, note-taking. You can make note of everything that the speaker is talking. So it is easier for you to interpret the speakers. And this, the one that is speaking, they may stop. And then you start doing your job, interpreter. And if the speaker takes a long time talking, you can make your note-taking technique and then translate. That's the reason that I said that is the easy one. In simultaneous interpretation, you don't have this tool. So it's really hard. It's really difficult, but it's not impossible.
And fishing practice.
But each interpreter has their own style. Watch as 3 different interpreters take notes on the same sentence.
We want to authorize the use of the dolphin-friendly label by your country's tuna processors, but we must have a reliable way to verify the use of authorized equipment and fishing practices.
Interpreters usually come up with the symbols beforehand, and as you can see here on Caddy's cheat sheet, she carefully thought about what will be most useful for this particular meeting. The DFL stands for dolphin-friendly label.
So as you see, she used her own symbols. So it is not that it's a must that you have to use the one that I give you. No, you can do and you can write and you can use whatever you want, whatever it works for you.
TU in a box refers to tuna that's being caught. You get the idea. Now let's watch as Caddy interprets her own notes into Spanish.
Queremos autorizar el uso de la etiqueta de Dolphin Friendly para los procesadores de pescado de su país, pero necesitamos poder verificar que estén utilizando equipos y técnicas de pesca adecuadas.
Now let's switch to simultaneous interpretation. Simultaneous interpretation is usually used with earpieces and microphones and with interpreters working from a soundproof booth. But we won't have equipment in this demonstration. When we're right next to another person, like in this scenario, we can employ what we call chuchotage, which means whispering in French.
Considerar otro tipo de medidas para que
This usually isn't ideal. Whispering for a long time is bad for the vocal cords. It can also be hard to hear due to ambient noise in the room, like ventilation. Now let's talk about pacing. In simultaneous interpretation, you try to maintain an optimal distance from the original speaker. This is referred to as décalage, or ear-voice span. We'll call it EVS. So when one diplomat starts speaking, the person employing chuchotage would probably start here.
We understand perfectly the preferences of the consumers in your country, and that is why we are coming together to identify.
Even if the speaker is speaking at 100 to 110 words per minute, which research tells us is the optimal speed for interpreting, the interpreter still has to figure out the optimal EVS. Here's the problem. The further back in the diplomat's speech the interpreter is,
de los consumidores de su país, y por eso también queremos reunirnos con ustedes para encontrar una solución que sea aceptable.
the more the interpreter has to keep in their short-term memory. They're listening and processing as they're interpreting. It's a lot.
Is high quality dolphin.
But get too close to the original speaker's words, and they may screw up things like grammar, syntax, and style.
The preferences of the, we understand that the preferences of the country of yours, that is.
And of course, interpreters are prone to fatigue and burnout. Fatigue will hit at around 30 minutes of straight interpreting. This is why simultaneous interpreters often switch out in intervals of 30 minutes or less. If pushed to our limits, interpreters can really suffer. You may recall the 2009 incident in which Muammar Gaddafi's interpreter collapsed at the UN after simultaneously interpreting for over 75 minutes. So what happens if the conversation turns emotional or the speaker becomes rude?
Well, my friend, I've listened to what you have to say, and the only conclusion I can come up with is that you're a damn fool.
Interpreters are not meant to be mediators. Our only job is to stay true to the message of the speaker. If someone becomes rude or angry, if threats are made, then we are supposed to interpret those threats faithfully. So in this situation, an interpreter would not say,
Y la única conclusión a la cual puedo llegar es que usted ha sido un poquitito imprudente.
and here is an example of a faithful interpretation.
Y la única conclusión a la cual puedo llegar es que usted es un perfecto idiota.
Although a speaker may become emotional and gesticulate, the interpreter is not going to parrot the behavior of the speaker. This is not the way.
Pero ¿cómo me puedes hacer esto a mí? Yo pensé que éramos amigos.
How could you do this to me? I thought we were friends.
This is more realistic.
Pero ¿cómo me puedes hacer esto a mí? Yo pensé que éramos amigos.
But how could you do this to me? I thought we were friends.
So the situation has gotten quite intense. Maybe a joke would be helpful to lighten the mood. But jokes are some of the most difficult things to interpret because they can get lost in translation easily.
What did one dolphin say to the other after splashing him? You did that on purpose.
Never mind that this joke barely makes sense in English. In Spanish, it completely doesn't work because porpoise is marsopa and purpose is propósito.
¿Qué le dijo un delfín al otro después de salpicarlo? Usted eso lo hizo encima de la marsopa.
Untranslatable pun.
No entiendo.
Attempts at humor are often lost, and there's not much an interpreter can do. There's an anecdote about an interpreter who, when faced with an untranslatable joke, simply said,
Oiga, su colega acaba de contar un chiste que resulta totalmente intraducible, así que ríase, por favor.
Eso estuvo bueno. Eso estuvo bueno.
That was a good one. That was a good one.
Of course, what we've seen today is a tiny excerpt of what are often longer and arduous negotiations. And that concludes our bilateral meeting behind closed doors. This job is tough to juggle the many things that we have to do to be able to interpret well and accurately. But this job is important because it's what makes communication possible between countries and between peoples. I've been at it for 25 years, and I wouldn't trade it for the world.
That's right. In conclusion, the interpretation connect the word. Okay, my dear student, that's all for today. See you the next class. Okay, bye-bye and good night. Rafa, he terminado.
Listo, profesora.
Listo.
Listo, profesora. Si no tenemos más consultas o aportes, podemos dar como finalizada la sesión de la noche de hoy. Tengan todos una excelente noche. Gracias, profesora.
Gracias, hasta luego.